So CAPR is going to have an advisory committee where I think they're going to get torn apart for having the gall to file an NDA for 8 patients of data, which is not normal medicine. Now, these are dying kids. The stakes are very high for the families, and I respect that. But that's all the more reason that the approach to these clinical trials is to be taken seriously. And the company certainly could have raised more capital. Now is not the time. Probably about that. They could have raised capital years ago. There's plenty of capital in biopharma industry. The children who need medicine like this should not be a victim of not knowing whether or not the drug works or not because the company was too lazy to figure it out, or the market wasn't interested enough. The market said, I'm not going to fund this. Now look, CAPR is a decision by the FDA, right? There's no way to really know what they're thinking or how they're thinking. So you just have to be pretty careful. So FDA decisions are harder to deal with than clinical trial decisions, or clinical trial data, I would say. Yeah, they're very volatile stocks. They're the more they get traded, the more they get traded. It's a very bizarre feature of the amount of trading that exists in the markets these days. There's a book I want to show you guys. It's a little bit old, but you might want to check it out. It's called Finding Alphas by 𝗦𝗛𝗓𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 I may be able to find a copy. I wish I worked harder and more consistently. I do. I don't work nearly as hard as I want to and nearly as consistently as I want to. I think that getting your mind in the zone is so important, and it's difficult to do. It really is. Everyone leaves projects unfinished and, stuff like that. We really want to do everything, accomplish all your tasks, but it's hard to do. This is Q424. Okay, so they were guiding to 9. Okay, they got it to 354. This is their adjusted guidance. 354 to 358. So this is, I'm guessing they're just not going to pay taxes, basically, or less than I think. I want to look for some of these alternative metrics. They have 803 US total commercial. I want to make sure I get all these just right. I think it might be, better to find them in the presentation, but we could give this a shot. Commercial revenue was 214. That's just the US though. Let me see if they're more cleanly presented. How do you get your mind in the zone? I think basically, one, you have to really want it, right? And I think people think they want it, but you have to really want it. And you also have to have the presence of mind where you're not just moving your legs on the bicycle, but you're really driving with purpose and with direction. Because it's easy to move your legs and pump the wheels of the bicycle, but it takes a lot more than that. Okay, here's the commercial versus government. So government's still a bit bigger. We can look at US versus rest of world. So we can easily just subtract for rest of world here. Rest of world commercial, it's probably really young business for them. And then rest of world government. So I'm assuming that's Canada and some other friends. What do you notice? All right, so they also have US versus rest of world, which is probably worth doing as well. And you can see that US grew a lot faster. Total, it's so weird. They provide all these for the US only. I think they used to provide them a little more broadly. Customer count, 7-Eleven. I put customer count down here. I should bring it back up, but regardless. 7-Eleven, 629, 593, 554. Okay, commercial customer count. So they're smaller accounts, but they have way more commercial customers than government customers. It's just that the government customers spend a lot more. Good question. Usually SEC filings will tell you a little bit about warrants. This is Palantir. Yeah, not much you can do with type 1. There's, especially if this onset has already started. It's just one of these diseases that just pharma's got nothing for. There's, of course, a bunch of companies trying things like Vertex. I would pay attention to their product. There's another company called Sana, S-A-N-A. But yeah, Vertex is probably the most promising product. But yeah, so far there's not been much. Next few years what is this? Total revenue growth excluding strategic commercial contract. It depends on what the number is. If they hit a 900 number in Q1, I think the stock will go up a bit, 10% or something. So let's say they hit 900, and then they guide to 920 or 930. I don't know, Ken. I think you get around 3 billion in cash flow, and that's growing, still growing a lot. So it's not that overvalued. Hopefully nobody's short the stock. It's been such a winner. It'll continue to be a winner.
During the call.
Yeah, I'm looking forward, obviously, Ken, 2 years. They don't have, they barely have 3 billion in revenue, let alone cash flow. So I'm looking forward about 2 years for that one. Palantir fundamentals are the best fundamentals of any stock out there. You got to understand the company's growing revenue at an incredible pace, 36% year over year. And that's been growing sequentially for now 5 or 6 quarters in a row. You know, they were only growing 13% in 2023. Relatively slow growth for enterprise software. So we'll see what happens, but it's certainly precarious if they don't have a quarter that's in the high 800s or low 900s. I bet you the stock will sell off. So you'll be very careful here. Expectations are very high. The fundamentals are very good, which is why the stock price has a high valuation. Yeah, it's hard to see them not winning. I mean, it's kind of like a combination of Accenture and OpenAI. You know, they're sort of taking a lot of the stuff that, you know, OpenAI is sort of like off the shelf kind of offering where you can just plug it into your company today, you know, immediately. But if you've ever worked with OpenAI's API, there's a lot of stuff to do with it that is kind of hard to do. And your developers inside the company may know how to work with it and they may not. And Palantir's guys have seen it all. So just hiring Palantir to, you know, basically write a for loop and call the API is kind of part of it. And then ontology, very few people do. OpenAI is not infrastructure. I don't think that's right. I think they started out the company maybe wanting to be infrastructure, but that's not where it's at now. And it's funny because Palantir has roughly the same value as OpenAI, around 300. Palantir is like the custom work with LLMs and machine learning, and very few developers are really great at machine learning. I don't really use the phrase AI plays, but if you're asking for alpha, right, OpenAI has gone up a lot. I still think it's going to go up more. I think it's going to triple or more from where it's at, but that's a privately held company. Palantir is obviously one of them. I mean, they can go to every S&P 500 company and every government agency. Well, people don't use OpenAI as a component. That's not where the revenue's coming from. It's coming from ChatGPT, which is a tremendous product, but it's not a system in and of itself. Palantir creates the systems. Machine learning indeed is quite hard. Again, most of the AI companies are private, so it's a little hard to know what's going to give you all the alpha. It's funny that Google is just sort of like should be the answer here, but they've just fallen on bad times. I think Anthropic sucks. I'm not a big Anthropic fan. We use it here a little bit at work, but I think they're second tier guys. It's not obvious what the publicly traded AI alpha is. Certainly Microsoft has been the expectation for a long time. Amazon and Oracle are sort of hustling to catch up. But again, most of the action's in private markets. They've tried, Wolfgang. Microsoft's tried to integrate their own AI in many cases. No, 𝗏𝗘𝗢𝗕, I don't think the discount rate would be in the high teens, maybe 9%. At this point, you know, with their 50% operating margin, it's hard to discount them by too much. I don't like Sonnet 3.7. It's made a lot of mistakes in my code. I use GPT-04. DeepSeek is a Chinese thing. Meta, you know, certainly has reflected that success. It's a very big company. Probably the biggest winners in AI will be your standard S&P 500 companies, none of which will skyrocket, but just like the internet helped almost every business in the world, so too will AI help every business in the world. Jim, Tom, I don't think their PE is 648. I would look at cash flow instead of earnings. So trailing 12-month cash flow Palantir is 1.1 billion. So the current earnings ratio is 240 times earnings. But if you did that math for NVIDIA and other companies during their growth phase, the PE ratios kind of get nonsensical. So just their guidance bumps that to 1.5 billion, in which case it's 184 times earnings. And that's still backward looking. So if you forecast, yeah, that's surely, that's alpha. If you bought Palantir a year ago, that's huge alpha. So even a very modest forecast for the next 12 months, you're at 120 times earnings. That is true, null. They do have a good chunk of earnings are interest income. So you should theoretically should subtract that. Yeah, that's 10% of cash flow. It'll drop going forward as well. But anyway, the point is, I mean, if they're growing at a run rate, cash flow run rate of 2 billion, they double that twice, which is not a long time at this rate of growth. That's 6 billion. You're still at 45 times, but there's a lot of questions. Is that revenue going to be sticky? How much faster could it grow? How fast can you double a double? It usually takes about 10 years. So, if they miss up any part of it, you have a big problem on your hands. So it's certainly not a cheap stock by any means, but if they can consistently beat these numbers, and you can get to 3 or 4 billion in earnings, they may be in a 3 billion earnings run right now. So again, doubling that or tripling that, could get you in a territory where it's a reasonable value, but I don't know. It's certainly not for the faint of heart. Any slowdown whatsoever can crash the whole stock market. That's how it's like an NVIDIA kind of power level. It would not be hard for them to crash the entire tape. So thinking about adding Toyota to my market maker, but Toyota's kind of thin. Average volume's fairly limited. Put that here somewhere. I don't have a position. My guess is they're going to beat earnings pretty substantially. Perhaps it'll trade up and then trade down again. I don't know. Their opportunity is maybe one of the best ways to value them. This kind of reminds me of when we were trying to value Google and it wasn't easy. What's the opportunity for the company? Right now, revenue, of 4 billion isn't much in the scheme of things. If you thought about like the entire S&P 500 IT spend, let's think about that. Let's ask ChatGPT actually. Okay, let's go to 4.5. Estimate the entire S&P 500 plus US government IT spend. And then you have the opportunity for Palantir to use Palantir to become more efficient. Okay, so the S&P 500 IT spending is way bigger. Wait. Market cap? I didn't ask him for the market cap. Ackman's pretty good stock picker. Do you want me to tell you Ackman's returns? I have his returns in this secret file I'm not supposed to share with anybody. 500 billion annually in just S&P 500. I don't know, could it be possible that they someday are going to have 50 billion in revenue? I mean, Alex Karp probably is some possibility of doing that, right? Certainly, again, early days for Palantir, but they've grown from 1 to 4 billion. Could they be on a journey to grow to 10 or 20 or 30 or 40 billion in revenue? You're betting on a management team as much as you're betting on anything else. All right, so Ackman's returns are as follows. Don't write this down or anything. Okay, I'm missing a little bit of history, but let's see. So let's see, 2008 is the first year I have for them. It was down 12%. The market was pretty rough that year. It's up 41% in 09, 30% in 2010. I don't have 11. If you have 11, let me know. 12% in 12, 9% in 13, 37% in 14. Then he had a real rough patch where he got humbled quite a bit by Valiant and some other things. I don't have a good 18 number. I think he was down though, but I'm not sure. Then he was up 58, up 70, up 28, down 9. That was a rough year for hedge funds. And up 26, and then up 10. And he's up a little bit this year, up 6 so far this year. Pretty good results. Highlight this stretch was pretty solid. Last 10 years, his worst year was down 10. Don't know what happened in 2020. I haven't followed that closely, but this is not a bad record at all. Average is 17%. Geometric average is probably less, right? But the straight arithmetic mean is 17%. Oh yeah, wasn't 2020 was that COVID thing that big COVID trade he did. That was his big COVID trade. Yeah, there you go. All right, let's get back to Palantir. So yeah, they got that gigantic addressable market. You know, so it's really not clear what they will look like. And you know, when you buy a management team like that, you know, you could be getting something that, you know, is really incredible. And that's kind of what you're doing, is you're hoping this is, or you're expecting, I don't know, that it's the next Microsoft, you know, it's the next Oracle. I mean, it's already the next Oracle, but you know, something in that legendary status. And to that end, I mean, you know, certainly the companies. Now let's look at their guidance for the full year, because that's going to be quite important. My bot really wants to short Palantir for some reason. I think XYZ is okay for long. I mean, you're catching a fallen knife, obviously. Your bot is smart, bruh. The bot's a market maker, so it likes to take the other side. CENTCOM, there you go. Thank you. Looking, you know, just looking at my bot, making sure it can trade the right amount of liquidity, which of course is nowhere near this stuff. But okay, you know, I got T-Mobile trades 700 mil a day, Home Depot 900 mil a day, and Palantir 12 billion a day. You got to get up to Tesla levels for that. I don't know the metals and mining business. That was never my jam. Okay, so this is kind of what I wanted to do. I want to look at Toyota average daily volume and compare it. It's really small. This is the ADR. Most of the action in Toyota is in Japan. So it is only trades a couple 100,000 shares a day. So around $43 million. I mean, my bot can trade quite a lot. So I don't know if I stay away from Toyota for now. This is just me exploring the markets, looking for this or that. I'm kind of trying to see how big are some of these markets. You know, Toyota's very, very, very small relative to a lot of these other stocks. I don't doubt that I could have it in my portfolio, but I'd rather trade the Japanese stock. I like American Express a lot. Best stock pick I've ever made. I made a lot of good ones. I don't know if there's a single best. I was very early to Alexion. Alexion was a big win. Became a very well-run, large biotech company. Got absorbed by AstraZeneca. That was a really big one. You want chemistry? I have a fun analysis I can do here. So the aggregate value traded in a day of all the stocks I've pooled together, this is just the top 50, is around 200 billion. But what's the AUM of the quant hedge funds? Some hedge funds have less volatility and just as good performance. So that's what some people... some hedge funds use leverage, some don't. And sharp value is always changing. Pre-seed, those valuations are too small. I'd say 15. So if you're brand new, you could do like 5. Like 10 or 15 is fine too if you're an experienced person. Palantir stock absolutely needs a beat and raise for it to have any hope of going up. Stock has gone up so much, it's hard to imagine it not trading down on earnings, no matter what the earnings are. It's just a very tricky thing when your company just performs that well. You know, you get into these bizarre situations. Even though you've done really, really well, your stock is just priced so high that it's hard to make it go up, no matter what you do. Now, over the long run, that's not the story. You know, in the long run, you can get there, but it is one of the challenges of being an exceptionally high performer. That's fine, Nick. The 150 on 3 million is fine. I think you should start raising your valuation, but that's good for a first round because you didn't dilute by too much. The key is not wanting to dilute by too much. Okay, so what are we going to do in Palantir? That is the big question. All right, so the Palantir, we're trading at $124. So let's see if we can. We got options expiring this week. All right, the May 16s. Or I guess that I only see the May 16s. I'm sure they're weekly options, right? I'll just do the May 16s. So that's 11 days from now. So you get 990 on the calls and 970 on the puts. So it has to move 16% for you to lose money selling the straddle. One thing you could do is you go to PLTR equity HP, download, just hit download into Excel. You can also download into JSON. You just simply see what the biggest changes were. So it had a 24% move before. So 16, certainly not out of the question. One, there was a 23% move too. Let's see how many of these. Let's count. 248 days of performance. See if there's the 24% day. So that's 1. There's the 23% day, so that's 2. There's a 19% day recently, so it's 3. And okay, so there are 3 days in the last year where obviously, you know, this is an earnings day, so it's not exactly the same. And then we've got min. So on min, you're already covered because it was never down more than 15%. Just a cold statistical chance where it's very unlikely that a 16% change will happen. But you have to keep in mind that these were earnings reports, most likely. So let's see. Yeah, this was, I think, an earnings day. So, and that looks like it was an earnings day too. So at least 2 of the earnings days, 2 out of, I guess, 4 maybe is one way to look at it. So it's kind of like a 50-50, which is why the market's pricing it at 16%. As the company gets bigger though, those surprises should be a little smaller. I'd still think about shorting the straddle. Do you guys want me to write a program to automatically trade it? Same thing as Palantir, consensus is at the high end. So they have to come out at 550 or something, which would be over 100% growth. Not quite 100% growth, 98% growth. And then for the next quarter, the street's at 565. I think CAPR is unlikely to survive a really thorough adcom, but you never know with these things. Yeah, so I think my official diagnosis on Palantir is sell the straddle, low conviction. I don't know really what else to do. Long term, I kind of like it still, but that's kind of where I'm at for tonight. I think they'll beat. All right, HIMS. As I mentioned, consensus is at 539. Next quarter is 565. They guided to 520 to 540. I think they could come in above even 550. So you just don't know what the profitability of that deal is. Yeah, these prices are outlandish. It's even worse than Palantir. So it's about $10 on HIMS. $10 to sell a straddle. Buy the stock and sell a call? Or buy the stock and sell a straddle? Hey, IonQ is a couple more months like that. It might be up for the year. Right now it's down 28% for the year. Is that underperforming the S&P? It's underperforming the S&P pretty bad. Is it close? Nah, it's not close. You have $10 of downside protection. If it goes crazy to the upside, you own the stock. If it goes crazy to the downside, it's going to be a little painful, but hard to imagine that'll happen, right? Same as just selling 2x puts. What if the stock goes up? I guess it's the same, right? I mean, you don't get the same upside. You don't get linear upside. Implied move for HIMS is 20%. Yeah, the vol is very expensive. So I want to sell the vol. If they just have a great quarter, slightly above guidance for the street, I think the stock will basically be flat. It's been so pumped. If the stock's going to 70, of course I want to buy some call options. But yeah, I think the upside is pretty limited. The downside's pretty limited. And if there is going to be a big move, it'll be up. Or if there is going to be a move at all, it'll be up. Credit card data is really good. Everyone knows that. So I don't see it really going up crazy. Wall Street gets the credit card data from several different companies. There's one called GitBit. There's one, Bloomberg shows it. We're working on getting it as well. We actually have a sort of a third thing other than credit card data too. We have some really interesting traffic data.